Creating a primitive can be a great way to get started creating sculpted geometry. Primitives start with a simple base sketch shape, such as a rectangle for a box or a circle for a cylinder, and then those profiles are pulled outward in a direction that gives the final shape. The initial base sketches can be dimensioned if desired, and once the preview of the primitive shape appears, the overall size and number of faces can be adjusted as needed. In this lesson, I'll demonstrate how to create a couple of these primitives. However, each one is fairly intuitive to create and follows the same workflow. Create a base sketch on a plane, adjust the overall size and number of faces in the preview, and add special relations or other options like symmetry. Primitives are often created as the first body in the design, used as a base to work from. Beginning with a blank canvas, I'll add the first primitive by enabling the Create Form command from either the Create panel or in the marking menu under the Create flyout. When I select it, Fusion 360 notifies me that I've entered the sculpt environment. Once I'm finished creating the sculpt geometry, I'll click the Finish Form button to return back to the solid modeling environment. This is extremely powerful, as I can switch back and forth between both environments as needed. I'll click OK to begin. Now that I'm in the sculpt environment, I can use various commands like creating new geometry, modifying geometry, adding symmetry to bodies, creating sketch and construction geometry, and many others. And once I'm done creating the sculpt geometry, I can click Finish Form shown here at the end. The primitives commands can be enabled from two locations, similar to when I clicked on Create Form. I can select them from the Create pull-down menu, or by right-clicking to bring up the marking menu and expanding the Create flyout. To begin, I'll create a box. The first step in the primitives workflow is to create the base sketch on a plane, in this case, a rectangle. I can use either the center rectangle or a two-point rectangle. And then when I draw the sketch on the XZ plane, the preview of the box appears. In this case, I wasn't too concerned about adding dimensions to the base sketch, as the overall size of the box can be adjusted as needed. To make these adjustments, I can either drag the arrows showing in the graphics area, or I can enter numerical values in the pop-up window or the dialog box for length, width, and height. Notice there are other manipulators showing in the canvas. These are used to create additional faces on the primitive, which adds more data points to the geometry and refines its shape. The number of faces can also be adjusted in the dialog box. In this case, I want there to be 3 faces in each direction, so I'll drag the manipulators to change the amount in each direction. Moving down the dialog box, there is an option to set the direction of the box. The default direction is set to one side, which creates the geometry in one direction above or below the plane of the base sketch. If I turn on the origin geometry in the browser, you can see that the box is being created above the XZ plane. If I switch it to symmetric, notice that the box is now being created above and below the plane in equal amounts. Since this is the first body in the model, I'll change it back to one side for now. The next option, Symmetry, defines if symmetry should be added in the various directions that define the primitive. If I select Mirror for this box, 3 symmetry types become available. If I select one of them, such as Width Symmetry, green lines appear in the canvas, indicating where the symmetry is applied to the geometry. Symmetry will be covered more in-depth in later lessons. However, for now, just know that if symmetry is added to the primitive, changes to one point on the geometry will be reflected across all symmetry lines. I'll turn off symmetry for now. Lastly, the operation type is set to New Body for this primitive, because this is the first body in the model. Other operation types will be made available when other geometry exists in the model. With all of the options set, I'll click the OK button to finish creating the primitive. To demonstrate other types of primitives that can be created, I'll enable the cylinder primitive type, which will create a surface body instead of an enclosed volume, like the box. The workflow is the same for this primitive. First, I'll draw the base sketch on a plane, which in this case is a circle. Then make adjustments to the overall size and number of faces. Change any other settings as needed, such as the direction of the geometry or adding symmetry, and clicking OK to finish. As mentioned before, the cylinder I just created is modeled as a surface body, which is not a watertight enclosed volume, since it has open ends. This can be closed off later on if needed. But it's important to note here that some primitives create enclosed volumes and some create surface bodies. Now that I've created both of the primitives I wanted, I can exit the sculpt environment by clicking Finish Form. And the sculpt geometry was added to the solid modeling environment's timeline as a single feature. In addition, a solid body and surface body are shown in the browser, each having unique icons next to the body name. There are a number of other primitive shapes that can be created in the sculpt environment, all of which have descriptions available in the tooltip when hovering over the command.